As many of you know, Elvis, of course, it all started here. He was born right here in Tupelo and lived out his young years here before moving to Memphis. WTVA's Ethan Foster shows us a little bit more about Presley's time living in the All-America city.
My goal is to help you learn something about Tupelo in regards to Elvis Presley that you may not know about, show you a few spots that you might not realize had a connection to Elvis Presley. And to help me with that, today I have Mr. Roy Turner, Executive Director of the Elvis Birthplace, also a member of the Tupelo Elvis Presley Fan Club. So thank you so much for being here today. Lifelong Elvis fan?
Well, pretty much since about 12 years old.
Got to be an Elvis fan to be in a job like this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see what we can find. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. On the docket for our Tupelo Elvis fan tour were 3 stops. The first was a place Elvis spent a lot of time before he was even born. It's a spot on South Green Street that's now called Relics Antiques. But in 1935, it was the Tupelo garment plant. Obviously, there's a connection here, so tell me what the connection between Elvis and Relics Antiques, formerly the Tupelo garment plant, what that connection is.
Well, Gladys was working here at the time she was pregnant with Elvis. And when she gave birth to him, she was out of work for several weeks. But her co-workers made up money, as was the custom in that day. And one of the ladies that lived out east of East Tupelo was instructed to take the money to them. And she was also instructed to be sure and give it to her, not to him, because they had a concern that Vernon might let it slip through his fingers.
So Elvis's dad maybe had a little bit of a reputation with the people at the plant.
Yeah.
Well, definitely very interesting there. Started from the bottom here at the Tupelo garment plant. If you're in town, come by, take a look at the Elvis memorabilia, and maybe buy yourself something too. You'll definitely find something you might like.
Looks that way.
Time to go to the next stop. Not too far away from the old garment plant, there's a house on Maple Street that played a big part in what happened shortly after Elvis was born. Tell us a little bit about why this house is important.
Sure. Gladys's aunt and uncle, Gaines and Ada Mansell, lived here. At the time, Vernon was incarcerated for participating in check forgery. Gladys could not keep up the payments on the little birth house at the Elvis Presley Museum and was forced to leave. She and Elvis moved in with her family. Vernon was sentenced for 3 years, but he only served 9 months. When he got out, they continued to live here for several months until he could get on his feet.
So again, that story continuing of Elvis having his roots here deep in the South where income was low, but life was still good for young Elvis. And our next stop is just a continuation of that story. In Elvis's last year in Tupelo, he had a best friend named Sam Bell. And one of their favorite spots to hang out with friends was the Lyric Theater on North Broadway Street. The year was 1948, Elvis was 13, and the South was segregated. So Sam had to buy tickets at a separate booth, use a different entrance, and sit in the colored section to watch movies. But that didn't stop Elvis. In fact, he often climbed over the partition dividing the sections so that he could go over and sit with Sam in the segregated theater. And as you've heard, that is just one example of a time when Elvis wasn't famous, he wasn't the king of rock and roll, and he wasn't anything more than a young boy from Tupelo with a big heart. But it proves that even before he was known worldwide, he had already made a lasting impact on the All-American city. In Tupelo, Ethan Foster, WTVA 9 News.